Welcome, everybody. Glad to have you here. We're going to have just loads and loads of fun talking about maintaining Docker images. Doesn't that sound like an exciting topic? It's good to have the ability to talk about those kind of things. Those are the kind of things that make all those little niche corners of things are the places that make it hard to work on any software because there's so many layers and so many procedures and all that kind of thing. So it's a good reason for us to talk about it and work on it and see if we can make things work. Let's go ahead and introduce ourselves like we usually do. Say who you are and where you are and why you're here, whatever you want to do. I'm Randy Fay. I'm the lead maintainer of the DDEV project, and I'm in Palisade, Colorado. And this afternoon, I'm going to drive to Denver for Drupal Camp, Colorado, where Paul will not be. And we were supposed to have Paul there, and we were supposed to go mountain biking, and it all went to hell. Oh, Paul, we have an enormous smoke cloud all over Colorado that would have discouraged us from mountain biking. Oh well. Alberto, go ahead.
Yes, so I'm Alberto. I'm based in Switzerland, using DDEV for a few years now. I'm interested in Go and Docker. I've been doing Drupal as well for a few years. So I'm happy to be here and learning something new. So hi, everybody.
Great. Andre, welcome. If you would go ahead and introduce yourself.
So, hi, can you hear me?
Yes, we hear you.
Fine. I'm Andre Buchmann from Germany and working mostly with Typo 3 in DDEV, and also tried some stuff like DDEV providers and whatsoever with GitLab connections. It's a really cool feature to get running fast.
Well, we're glad to have you. This is the first time we've met, right? And first one of these you've come to?
Yes, I just wrote some times in the Discord or Typo 3 Slack channel.
We're very glad to have you. That's fantastic. David, go ahead.
Yeah, I'm David. I have about 10 years experience, mostly in PHP, a little bit of Python, JavaScript, and a lot of Drupal. And I used to use Lambda all the time, but I switched to DDEV and it is leagues better. So I'm a believer. And I'm not a big, or I don't know a lot of Go at the moment, but I'm going to learn and I'm willing to try to contribute as much as I can. So
That is wonderful. Where in the world are you, David?
I'm outside of Dallas Fort Worth in Cleburne, Texas.
Cool. It's great to have you. Abhishek, go ahead.
Hi, hello everyone. Yeah, I'm a Drupal developer, exploring Mautic recently. I am from India and yeah, trying to contribute more into DDEV if any way possible. Yeah.
Great to have you. Where are you in India?
Pune, it's in Maharashtra.
India is a huge country, huh?
Yeah. Yep.
Well, thank you for, I guess it's evening there, right? What's it, about 8:30 p.m. or something like that?
7:30 p.m.
Yeah, great to have you.
Yep.
Yeah, Truls, go ahead.
Yes. Hello, my name is Truls. I'm from Norway, and I have been working with Drupal and DevOps for quite a long time. I think maybe 16 years I've been a part of the community. So I have been using DDEV the last few years for about 6 years. And now I just want to see whatever I can contribute to the community, and yeah, I just want to learn from you guys.
Great to have you as always. And Paul?
There it is. So I'm Paul Gilzo. I'm a developer relations engineer at platform.sh. I'm located in Missouri in the States. And as Randy mentioned, I was supposed to be in Colorado with him this weekend, but can't. Not sure what else were we supposed to say. I'm sorry. I work with Randy on the integration between DDEV and platform. That's what I'll say.
Vinmay.
Hey, hi everyone. So my name is Vinmayi. I'm from India, and I started my career with Drupal. I'm a junior developer now, with having 2 years experience. Last year I started using DDEV, so this is my first session, and I'm very much interested to learn more from you guys. Thank you.
We're very glad to have you here, all the way from India, or we're coming all the way from the other side of the world or something. So yeah, great to have you. Did I get everybody? I think I got everybody. Andre, did you? You did, right? Yeah. Okay, good. All right. Well, let me give you the outline that I have. We can talk about anything today, but here's the outline that I have, and we're going to just work our way through that and see how we do, and we'll just do some examples. Since, as always, since these things are sometimes, since I work with them daily and have for years, you know, you take a few things for granted and you don't remember exactly what you're supposed to remember to talk about, and you might not remember things in order. So feel free to stop me anytime to ask a question if you think it's related or unrelated, and we'll talk about it. We've got our hour today, and hopefully we won't have any trouble getting through this stuff. So yeah, so feel free to speak up anytime. And you can do the hand raising thing if you want to. I think this app has that, but you can just speak up too. So I am going to share my screen and see if I can get on the right. This is always good to have a second screen when you do this, because Zoom pops up these thousands of different things that you don't want. So if you may not have come to our Docker architecture session, which is recorded and it's out there on ddev.com. We did it a few weeks ago where we talked about what the different images and containers are and what they do together. So if I go to, let's see if I've got something running here. I've got a single project running. If I do a Docker PS here, we'll see, in my case, I happen to have a varnish image running, but let's ignore that for now. That's an add-on that I was testing. We have a database image running. I can make this bigger and it'll probably be easier to read a little bit. We have a database image running. We have, and that's MariaDB. We have a DDEV web server image running, or a container running. And then we have the traffic router, which is what receives all the traffic and gives it to the web server. And then we have the SSH agent, which is just responsible for allowing you to use SSH inside the DDEV web server. So in the simplest situation, we would have just those 4 running, and only 2 of those are for a project. So that's the essence there. Let me get rid of the, let's remove the varnish add-on, and I will do a DDEV restart, and then we'll have a simpler situation. Most of the maintenance work that I end up doing is on the DDEV web server. That is every time we have a new release, you do a DDEV start, and you see that takes, depending on your internet, it takes a little too long to download, because it's the biggest image that we have, and it's annoying how long that takes. But because it has so many things in it that are all there for developers. So, and that's why so often maintenance ends up happening on that. We'll just take a quick look at what is in there. So if we look at the DDEV repository, and we look in the containers directory, you see we have the DDEV DB server and the web server are the two biggest and most important ones. And the DDEV web server has just piles of stuff in it, but it's actually built on DDEV PHP base. So if we look at the Docker file for DDEV web server, you see that it is actually built from DDEV PHP base. And DDEV PHP base takes a full hour to build for both architectures.
Hey, Randy,
Yeah.
is there a specific reason why it's called PostgreSQL client version? Is there?
That's a great question. So, so that is a fantastic question, and let me add that to. Let me just make sure that I make a note of that. Because I'd like that to be covered in the blog post. So what we're looking at here is the current head version, and during this release cycle, we did some work on the Postgres clients. So for people that use PostgreSQL, we had to make a change to DDEV PHP base for that. When we did that, we made a tag for that. And so this is a development name. This is a tag of a development name for that DDEV PHP base, and we're building on that. So let me just, and slow me down here if I get going too fast. Let's go to Docker Hub and look at what's out there. So if we look at DDEV web server, for example, here are the images that we have in DDEV web server, and we have tags on each of these. So the name, or the registry name for this, is DDEV web server. And then there are tags for each of the versions of it. And so during development, you see that Stas here is working on one that we try to name our branches and thus the images that go with them with a date and the maintainer who's working on it or the contributor. So Stas is working on this one. You'll see it in the PRs. And so he has pushed that tag. And earlier, about 16 days ago, you see that I was working on this one that we're looking at right here, which has since been merged. But we were working on this branch in the code, and yet we had to make a change to this image. And so we try to make the tag name of the image match the branch name so that they're not confusing. Then when we do a release, we push one that has the tag of the release. So if I go to the DDEV directory and I say git branch, and these are the ones that I've been working on lately. Those are branches that I've been working on. And if those change an image, then they will have an image name pushed that matches that branch name. Does that make any sense?
Yes, that makes a lot of sense. Yeah.
So that was a very, very important and excellent question. So this is just the name of a tag. So it didn't have anything to do with Postgres specifically. It's the name of the branch of code, which is also used for the tag on the image. That is a fantastic question. Thank you very much for stopping us there to talk about that. So you see that, and we've looked at these Docker files in the various trainings before. Each line in the Docker file is a layer in the Docker image, and it lays down, each one lays down a new thing. So this layer here lays down the Symfony CLI, and this one here gets our MariaDB client apt repository set up, and on and on. And then this one here installs a few utilities inside there that we all know and love. So that's our, but let's say that we make a change here and we want to add a new tool. So for example, I always install AutoJump on my host. Abhisek, thank you for coming, and hope everything's okay. I always install AutoJump. It's a great utility. And so if I wanted to add AutoJump to the DDEV web server container, this might not be the perfect place to do it, but there it is. And we'll just add that. So this is the change that I wanted to make. But then what would I need to do to build that and to make a new image? The first thing that I'm going to want to do is to build it locally so that I can try to use it and experiment with it. That's also faster than actually pushing it up. When you push an image, or what you have to do is build both architectures, both your architecture and the other one. So in my case, I'm on a Mac, on an ARM64 Mac. So if I were pushing it, I would have to push, I would have to build using virtualization or emulation. I would have to build both the ARM64 and the AMD64 images and then push them. And that takes a while. But we have it set up so you don't have to do that for testing. So I'm going to see if I can just try to use the terminal here. And So if I am here in the DDEV web server directory, I did put in the notes that we want to do a Docker build X create -- use. That's really only required when you're doing multiple architectures, but we'll just do that ahead of time. But if I wanted to, let's just do what we were just saying. Let's make sure that I'm not leaving any work behind. So I'm going to create as if we were starting a new PR here. And the reason that we put the date on the front of those is really just so that I can do a Git branch and a tail and find the most recent ones at the end, because you end up with so many different branches. So that's why we have that convention. That convention is not anything terribly important, but that's why we suggest using the date and the maintainer or contributor on the front of there. So we have now created a branch, and I'm going to build this change that I just made. And maybe we won't wait for it all, but what I would do is I would say make version equals, and then I would use the same as the branch name. And that's all I have to do to make it locally. So I'm just going to see how that goes there and see if any smoke happens. And it's going to make a local image on my own machine with the tag of the same as the branch name. These warnings are new, and we're going to have to take a look at them. How about that? I think those are new warnings from Docker, and I haven't noticed those before. So this works away, and it downloads the required upstream things. You see that it's pulling the DDEV PHP base that we just talked about, the image that this one is built from, that it starts with the base of this image, and then it will start adding those other layers onto it, and that's what's going to happen. While it's doing that, we can go make DDEV use this image. So I'm going to open the file versionconstants.go, and in that file, are specified the images that we want to use. So we have there's a few things here that relate to versions, but you see it says the web image is DDEV web server, and the web tag here is the one that we're going to change for this. We're telling DDEV here in the code that we want to use a different web image tag. So I have just changed that in the Go code. That's all the change that I need to make it use that new one. And then I can I'll just go to another window here, and we will it's amazing how Zoom can slow down a machine, isn't it? So now we've changed the code here in two ways, and I'm just going to do a make to get that change that I made to the web tag into my DDEV. And now DDEV will point to that Docker image tag, the one that we're building locally on this machine. And I'm not sure whether we're going to be willing to wait for it or not. We'll just see if we're willing to. The build after you've done it once is not too painful, but it might be. I probably should have run it once before we did it. So in our outline here, what we've done for building building locally is we have turned on the multi-image build, which is just a good thing to start with. We're not using it right now. And then we can do make version equals some version, and I use the branch name. Or, and I should have showed you this, you can say make Docker org equals and do something so that you can push it even though you don't have privileges on the Docker Hub GitHub repository. And then we updated version constants.go. Tell me if that made sense to you.
I think it makes sense. And I see the note there that says this can be overridden by make. Which make file is that referring to?
Yeah, so that's the you're looking at the make. Oh, yeah, so yeah, that's another great question. Thank you very much. So let's take a look at that. So that is a great question. So we have, let's just see what it offers us here when we say open make file. And my system is definitely working too hard now. Maybe it'll be better when it gets So if I look for make files in this repository, you'll see that we have one in the root of the repository, and then we have one in each of the containers. And so if we take a look at the make file that's in the DDEV web server, which is the one that we're actually building right now, and that you're probably looking at, is that where you're talking? Oh, you're talking about in the code and version constants.
Yeah, it was just, I was just reading the comment right there next to it. Yeah.
So I actually haven't done this lately, but you can do a make. Actually, maybe we'll take that out of there. That's from I haven't used that process in ages, but there is a way in the main make file that we can override that. And this is it right here. And this is actually what I was going to talk about earlier, is that you can change the Docker org and the Docker repo. So instead of just doing, so so make is able to override that that image and tag using the make file. So when this gets done in just a second, well, I can demonstrate it anyway while we're waiting for it. I can do a make Docker org equals Docker org equals Randy Fay, for example, my personal one. Docker repo equals Randy Fay / DDEV web server, or DDEV something else. I don't want to, I'm not going to muddy the waters too much. DDEV web server. So instead of just saying make version equals, I can say make version equals something. And that will change the one that we're going to use. And I haven't used that technique for some time, and I guess I don't expect you to probably do so. That was something that was built into the Makefile like 7 years ago, with good intent by me, but I guess I could never remember how to do it. And I don't want, you don't want a build to be dependent on what somebody remembered to do at the very beginning, on the command line. So what I recommend to you is to, in general, change the version constants.go. So if you were going to push to a different, repository, you would just change this, and then before your PR got pulled, we would push it to the official repository and do that. And that way the code reflects exactly what's actually going on. We are almost done with our build here. But the basic things that we've done here are that we have learned how to do a make version equals something, and possibly change the org so that you have the ability to push it. And we've updated the version constants.go so that we can push it to someplace where other people can use it, like with a PR. Tell me if that's making sense.
Yes, definitely.
So when it comes time to push, when we're going to push to Docker Hub, the normal way that I do this, and I'll demonstrate this in the next bullet, is the normal way that we do it, what Stas and I do it, is using the GitHub Actions workflow. And you could actually do that yourself, but we could also give you permissions on that. But you could do it with a make push version equals, what are we doing? We do it like that, and that would push it to DDEV web server. And it takes a little while to make that happen. You would normally do your testing before you did a push like that. And as I was saying, if you don't have privileges on DDEV, then you would do Docker org equals you, given your Docker Hub account, and that would allow you to push to your own. And we probably won't take the time to push because it would take, we'd have to build both images for that. Oh, this is building the hardened image now, which we don't need. So we actually succeeded in doing this now. If I do Docker images, we should have had it. Maybe I stopped it too soon. I think I stopped it too soon. No. I've got enough images on this system, don't I? Anyway, we were doing the right thing, and we were building it, and we were building it locally. And if I do a DDEV start now, it's probably going to fail because I stopped it too soon. But it's going to try to get that image, And I assume it's going to fail because I didn't let it finish creating that image. But what you would do now is you would test and possibly step through what you do with your own. And by the way, if I do a DDEV version now, it will show us that the version that we specified in the code. So if you do a DDEV version and the web server image is the one that we specified. It almost looks like it worked. We'll see how it does. And you remember that what we installed was AutoJump that we added to the DDEV web server. And so we'll DDEV SSH and see if we got that in there. It may be that not doing a I think it didn't. I think I should have done a DDEV restart to get this to fail properly. It is already there. So we did succeed at doing what we were supposed to do, which is good. So we made a change to an image. We built it locally. We changed the version constants.go. And now we can locally test it, and we were able to locally test it with a DDEV SSH. I'm going to show you the way that we cheat now to do this, because we have it all set up in a GitHub Actions workflow. So I'm going to push this up, and I'm going to push it up to my own account, to my own fork. And so I'm just pushing this branch up to GitHub so that I can use the GitHub Actions technique to build it, which would be faster than building it on my own machine. It wouldn't take that long to build it here, but I certainly don't want to hold you up with it. So let's just let that go up. One thing you'll notice here is that when I do a git push, it's actually doing pre-checks before the push happens. And if you are doing any significant work on DDEV itself, you probably want to enable that. That's in the .githooks in DDEV. There's a .githooks directory that explains how to set that up so that you can do pre-push hooks or do all the linting before your code goes up. And of course, I often have something that I did wrong, something that's formatted wrong, that will catch that. So it catches it before you push it up, before it fails the tests on a PR and that sort of thing. But come on, hurry up. We are really working this thing today. Now that that's pushed, I'm not going to create a PR right now. I am going to go ahead and go to I'm going to go to my fork. And in the actions, I am going to say push tag image. And you can do this too. You just have to add the secret to your, you have to add the secret to your fork that lets you push to your own repository. But I'm going to say push tagged image. And under the workflow, I'm going to say the one that we just did. So there's the one that we just pushed up. And I'm going to call it the same. And then I'm just going to run, and I can choose which image I want to push. In our case, we are working on the default, which is the DDEV web server. And so I can run that workflow, and that will push it up to Docker Hub. And if we remember, in about 10 minutes, we can look at that and see that it did push that up. And that is actually something that if you're working heavily on like DDEV web server or something like that, that's a very easy thing to, well, it should be relatively easy for you to set up. And if the need is there, then we can set you up to push the other way. But, you know, I've pushed before we got this set up, and even when debugging, we've pushed many things manually. You just have to do it in another window and wait for it and not use your repository while it's happening. But this this GitHub action that we've set up is really nice. So, questions? Right. As always, feel free to speak up. So we've basically done the things that the most important things that you need to be able to do to work on an image and then use DDEV with it. We've actually run DDEV with the image that we changed, and that we built locally. One thing I should mention, and I should put it in the notes here, is that if you, like, right now we're pushing an image up to Docker Hub, which may not be exactly the same as the one that we built locally. And so when you have made a change like that, you need to do a Docker pull. So if this completes before we're done and we come back to it, we will do a Docker pull to make sure that we've got the one from upstream. Okay, so let's take a look at some of the other ways to affect how this is all built. So we don't have to change the actual Docker file in every situation. And in a lot of cases, it's going to be better for us to test out something without building the whole thing that we just built. So you don't have to build a whole image to find out what's going on. If I go, for example, over to a regular project and I want to find out what would be the impact of adding the package that we just added. Of course, I could do it here in the config.yaml and just add it there. But let's go the more normal route for a more significant thing. And let's just add something to the web build Docker file here. And so in our, I'm just going to delete this. I'm going to delete this one and make a new one. Or maybe we'll use the dockerfile.example. Let's just make this Docker file. So if I wanted to test out without building a whole Docker image, I can just do something simple here. I can do something extraordinarily simple. For example, I'm going to run touch var temp. I touched it. And so if that were an example of what I needed to do in an image, this adds a layer to the image locally. And so it's a great testing technique. So using the dockerfile.star technique is a great way to do it. So if I do now a DDEV start, let me do a restart here so that all the containers do get built from scratch. Then I can go see if that change that I made to the image and to how it's built took place without building the whole thing. So you could pioneer almost any Dockerfile technique using a project.ddev web build Dockerfile. And it's a great way to start because the turnaround time, the testing time is just enormously easier to work with because you don't want to have to do a 10-minute build plus a pull every time you want to make a change to anything. So starting with a .ddev web build Docker file and making sure that your concept is correct is a better technique. And for some projects, you don't even care if it goes into the upstream Docker file. If you're doing something on DDEV core, of course, you care. But with some projects, you're just trying to build it for that project anyway, as opposed to build it for DDEV. So you don't need to do that anyway. So you'd be better to build it into a Docker file or build it into an add-on that does that. So when this is up, which it'll be in just a second, we'll go take a look and it will have been built into that image. And actually, I'm going to one thing that I wanted to show is that you can run an image directly to see what's going on. I may have a I don't know why this is, I guess it's taking a long time just because I'm being hard on my computer. Finally. Then now that we did that, I can do a DDEV SSH. And then if we look at var temp, we'll see that it created the file. I touched it there. So so we actually built that extra layer there. And I could actually, I can actually run the image. This is the one that we just built for D10 right here. This is the image, and I can actually run that image directly without DDEV. So I'm going to say docker run -it DDEV web server and the tag, and then I'm going to tell it what command to run. So it doesn't run its normal. Startup process. And so now that one is built, I can actually see here in the image itself that in var temp that was built, that file was actually built into there.
where did the dash D10 built part of that come in? Was that just dynamic?
That's a great question. So let's just take a look at the let's just take a look at those images again. We built this one from a Docker file. We built the one without the D10 built on it, but the one that we were just experimenting with using the .ddev web build Dockerfile file, that was derived from the other one, and that is done at DDEV start time. So when you do a DDEV start and it says building images, usually it doesn't take any time, but that's what it's doing, is it's building a custom image with whatever layers you needed for your project added onto it. If we do a DDEV start again here, it will take almost no time to do that because it's already built. It checks it and finds that it's, so it says building project images, and it's just checking and it's finding out that we already did all that. And so it only takes 7 seconds on my vastly slowed down machine. Did that answer your question?
Yes. And I have another question, which is in that web build directory, you have the Docker file, which adds another layer. I get that, but then what's the difference between that and the Dockerfile.target that you had before? And what if you had both of them? What happens then?
That's a great question. Let me show you where that. I'm gonna answer the question, then I'm gonna show you where it is in the docs. Originally, DDEV had only Dockerfile that you could put here, but these days, of the last few years, you can put Dockerfile.whatever. You can. So typically, the reason is they all get concatenated together. They all get used. So I had a Dockerfile.target for something I was testing, and we could have called this Dockerfile.solar. A lot of times add-ons will add one that is Dockerfile.addon name, and they all get concatenated together. So in this exact situation, I had a Dockerfile.target and I deleted it and I just made a Dockerfile. There's no difference in behavior there. But if I had several, they would all get built in alphabetical order, and so they could all be used. So if an add-on had added its own, it would be used as well. Does that make sense?
Yeah, definitely. Thanks.
I promised you that I would show you. Oh, our image is built, so we'll come back to that. So here's the docs on it, and it's actually, you can actually do even more things than what I said. You can have a web build Dockerfile, Dockerfile.whatever, and you can also have a pre.Dockerfile.whatever for something that has to be done before the regular Docker activities happen. It gets, most of the time, what people do is Dockerfile.star. So now our image that we pushed using the GitHub Actions technique is up. Oh, did I push the wrong one? Oh, there it is. So here it is. It's all pushed, and now I can do a Docker pull on it. So my DDEV that I'm working with knows which one it wants, and so I often copy that, and I can do a Docker pull on that. And it will pull that down, and well, I claim it will. What did I do wrong here? We pushed it, it's up there. And it says that it's not, it's telling us that it's not found up there. Um, And so then we would go to Docker Hub and we would say why. And I don't want to get go too far into the weeds here, but I do want to find out if I go to Docker Hub and I go to DDEV web server, and if I then go to the tags, where's my new tag? I gave it I shortened the name when I did it. That's what happened. So I screwed up when I pushed the when I did the push tagged image. I didn't type in or paste in the whole thing. And so the actual name is this one here. And I'm not gonna pull that because it would take about a minute, and we're near the end of our time. Let me just mention that there are image-based tests, and they're really valuable. So when we do let me go back to the DDEV code. When we do a build when we do a build, any build, we run the tests on DDEV web server itself. And so there's a number of tests here that are written in bats, which is also what we use for add-ons. And so we check a number of things, and maintenance on these tests is very welcome. Like I say, they work like the ones that are done for add-ons. And each of the images has tests that are run on it explicitly, not just the DDEV automated tests. So I want to, I know we're basically at the end of our time, but let me just ask for questions and be happy
Yes, I
to.
have one question,
Yeah.
if I may.
Yeah.
I can see there is this DDEV web server prod and deb. What are the difference between those?
I'm sorry, say that again, the difference between.
Yeah, that looks like there is like a version for prod, another for deb. It's production and development. And if you see in the folders, the directories that you have up, there are like
Hey.
files for prod and files
Yeah.
for deb.
So there's a test directory.
No,
And
but I mean the files. I mean, in the DDEV web server, there is DDEV web server base, and then the DDEV web server deb base, and then there is DDEV
yeah,
web
so
server files. So
that's a great question. So if we look at the Docker file, we will see that it adds files. So let's look at the, so you see that it adds these as it goes. And so there's actually 4 different sections of this Docker file. It's fairly complex, but it adds the base files, which include like the etc Apache and PHP files. And it adds var www, and it adds some things into user local bin. So that's what the base files have in it. So those are just files that get added into the Docker file with these commands. And then the base scripts are these like startup and health check scripts. And then there's etc and then we build a hardened version of this. So the prod files are a little different, and the prod scripts are a little different on that. Did that answer the question?
not really. So my question is focus in the prod and deb versions. Is it like, I mean, I'm wondering if these are generating images for production level, or it's just a name.
Yeah, so the ones that are called prod are for hardened images. And so we build a version of, let's just take a look here. And I know that we're in the end of our time, and that your time is valuable, so you can just drop off if you want, or say goodbye and drop off. But I'm happy to keep talking. If we go here to the DDEV images, you see we have a DDEV web server prod, and the prod or hardened image does not have sudo in it, for example. That's probably one of the biggest differences right there. But it also doesn't have mail pit in it. So and that prod or hardened image is typically used for the casual hosting feature that some people use for actually putting something on the internet. So if we look at if we search here for casual hosting, you see here how you can use DDEV to run actually on the internet with Let's Encrypt. And so that's what that's typically used for, is for something that's in a little higher security environment. DDEV is not intended or designed for real hosting, but it works actually quite nicely for small sites. And that's what that hardened image is for.
Okay, that was exactly what I was thinking, that it would be for something like this, but thank you for the clarification.
You bet. Thanks
It's
for
something that we will be covering another session, another day, like for example, Lagoon or other providers that.
Yeah, if you have suggestions about other topics to cover, yeah, please do raise them. Feel free to raise them anytime in Discord, and we'll get them onto the list, or do a PR form or anything else. So Paul's got to get going. Thanks, Paul. Great to have you. So yeah, any questions or comments or thoughts? I know that you actually have to get your fingers dirty on this for it to make sense. But the bottom line ideas are we build an image and we match it to the DDEV code that we're working with, and then we can test that, and we can build it all locally, and then we can also push it up.
Can you show really quick how to actually run these BATS tests?
Sure. Yeah, that's great. Let's do that. Let's find, well, I'll just do it right here on this one. I'll use a bigger terminal here. So I'm going to go to containers, and DDEV web server. And the basic thing that's going on is that we do BATS tests. But in this particular case, and that's what you would do on an add-on, is you just do that. But what I would usually do that sets everything up is just a make test here in DDEV web server. And what this does is it actually does a build, which shouldn't take very long because we just did it all. So everything seems to be cached. Hopefully it's cached. So it does a build, and then it runs those tests on it. So just a make test is how you would run those. You can run them individually as well, which is what you do when you're having to debug them. I guess it's going to build more layers than I hoped here, but that's what it's doing. While it's doing that, we can take a look at it's actually using this test.sh tool. And so it's running BATS on test DDEV web server test.sh, and it sets up a number of things here, and then builds a container, starts the container, and runs it and checks the global cache and that sort of thing. And unfortunately, our build is going to take a little longer than we expected before it starts running the tests, but we'll let it continue on for a minute here. Did that answer your question, the basics with the make test?
Yeah, definitely. And I was wondering if there was any specific reason to use BATS. I've never even heard of that. So I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, BATS is The reason for using bats is that Go testing doesn't really make any sense when there's no Go anywhere near any of these images. And bats is a relatively friendly Bash related language. I think it stands for Bash Automated Test System or something like that. And so you can see that it's more accessible than like Go testing. So you don't, all you need is a little bit of Bash knowledge to use to maintain these tests. Bats is, yeah, it's not as easy debugging as I could wish, but it's what we use by default in the add-ons, and it's what we use for the container tests. I guess we could have written Go tests for it, but Go tests are usually for testing Go. And so anyway, this does work and it's fairly easy, but most people haven't heard of bats. So that's definitely a thing. You're definitely right about that.
If I may add, maybe it's because Bash is a language that, at least for example, for me, I really don't like it. So I try to avoid it as much as possible. So a test framework on top of Bash, to me, sounds like too much.
Yeah, I can't disagree with you. And I can't say that I really love bats because every time I need to work on it, I can't remember how to debug it. So, but one of the basic contradictions of DDEV is that most DDEV users are experts in PHP and they don't know Go, or they may not know Docker, or they may not know many of the technologies that DDEV is used in. And so the contradiction is one of the reasons that we have these contributor training sessions, is that we want to be able to expose these different techniques and make sure that people can learn them and are not put off, because we'd love to have many of our users become contributors and maintainers. But Bash, the bottom line is Bash is typically a little easier for most PHP developers than Go. You don't have to learn how to compile it. You don't have to learn how to build it. You don't have to learn how to debug it separately from the other things. Anyway, so I don't disagree with you, but whatever. Any other questions or comments before we I know we'll have a little session that everybody's welcome to hang around about, and we're going to talk about Alberto's PR that he's working on, and you're welcome to stay for that. But I'm very glad that you came, and great to talk with you. I will stop the share, and I'll stop the recording. And